So this is the edition of the Kudila TV channel, edition, online edition at 18:20 hours GMT. There may be a couple of minutes either way. Essentially, this is listed as the edition for 18:20 hours GMT. And we're starting with a look at the Financial Times, which is overhyping the patriotism of Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party, and it says under the column Britain. It's a piece written by Robert Shrimsley, or at least that is his byline. And it's a racist piece overhyping Boris Johnson, patriotism, Brexit, and all those things. And there is no reference to anything to do with the creation of the environment that caused the deaths of very large numbers of people that should not have been neglected, but Boris Johnson has neglected. So this Robert Shrimsley piece is headlined Johnson Preys on Labour's Self-Doubt. And this is around the Union Jack, or the British so-called flag. And there is no explanation as to why a flag has to be put on the top of every government building. And there is no cost analysis, and there is no impact analysis, and there is no outcry from the Labour Party. And Robert Shrimsley actually does a one-sided promotion of the flag, patriotism, while at the same time claiming that the Labour Party as the progressive opposition is failing to put any kind of coherent policy, alternative reassurances to the electors. But this is a commentary that is passed on part of the lying narrative that Boris Johnson kind of fronts and personifies. And the Financial Times is completely wrong to do this particular commentary. The Financial Times is doing what Robert Shrimsley claims most ordinary people are. He says the most ordinary people are innately conservative. Now that is a half-truth, because most ordinary people may appear to be innately conservative, not because they are innately conservative, but because they are let down by the opposition, the alternative. That is the whole point. And that should take up 90% of the space in Fleet Street, but it doesn't. It's not given even 1% of the space by Fleet Street, including by The Guardian and by the Daily Mirror. So there is the actual corruption and criminality. And there is more on that in every single title. We'll go back to Liverpool and we shall look at the piece by Josh Halliday, who is described as the North of England correspondent. And Josh Halliday is talking about the Robert Jenrick, the housing minister or community minister, sending the commissioners to Liverpool. And let's see how The Guardian describes the context. Liverpool City Council should be brought under the joint control of government commissioners after inspectors found multiple failures and a serious breakdown of governance. The community secretary has said. Robert Jendrick said an emergency inspection had painted a deeply concerning picture of mismanagement, an environment of intimidation, and a dysfunctional culture at one of the biggest councils in Britain. Then it says commissioners appointed by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government will be sent to exercise certain and limited functions of the council for up to 3 years under a plan that will prove controversial just 6 weeks before England's local elections. It is thought to be the first time the Westminster government has directly intervened in the day-to-day running of a city the size of Liverpool, and is politically incendiary because it is one of the staunchest Labour cities. The region sends 14 Labour MPs to Westminster. A Liverpool seat last had a Conservative MP 38 years ago. Steve Reed, Labour's shadow community secretary, said he accepted the report in full and that Labour supported the plan to reform the council. He said the report had raised grave and serious concerns and severe institutional weaknesses at the Labour-run authority. And then it says, Jendrick's decision followed a damning report into parts of the council by Max Kolla, a local government consultant who carried out an emergency inspection for the government. The report was ordered after the arrest of 5 men, including the Labour mayor, Joe Anderson, last October. Now, this refers to Max Kolla. Anyone watching this for the last few months would have come across my referring to Max Kolla. But I refer to Max Kolla less frequently than I refer to Ken Knight. Now, those two were the front of the commissioners, or at the front of the commissioners list, sent to Tower Hamlets by Eric Pickles. And I condemn both Max Kolla as a liar and Ken Knight as a liar. Now, quite why this liar Max Kolla has been considered any better about Liverpool than he was about Tower Hamlets Council has not been explained in The Guardian is completely uncritical because he quotes The Guardian's writer Josh Halliday, quotes Steve Reed, the shadow community secretary, who accepted the report in full and goes along with the same narrative about Liverpool that Jendrick has been peddling. Now, this creates a dilemma for the seekers of the truth and truthful diagnosis of Fleet Street and truthful diagnosis of politics. Because we are opposed to the mayor system, and Liverpool City Council's Mayor Joe Anderson, who was arrested in the last few months, is one of the very typical examples of corrupt mayors. So we want Joe Anderson to be held to account, and we want the mayor system to be scrapped. Now, I can't find any evidence of the Guardian being aware of the central role played by the mayor system to the corruption of a council that is already corrupt, incompetent, unaccountable. And I'll check again while on this topic. It refers to the Tower Hamlets episode. It says commissioners were sent in to take over the running of councils in Northampton in 2018, Rotherham in 2015, and Tower Hamlets in 2014. But none of them was on the scale of Liverpool, a city of 500,000 people. In his report, Collar examined more than 65 property transactions at the council and concluded that corporate blindness had failed to pick up on serious failings in governance. He said many councillors flouted the code of conduct by not completing the gifts, hospitality, or interest registers. These registers were only updated from December when the inspection was announced. The Council's Ethics and Standards Committee last met in January 2012. Anderson said Liverpool had been transformed under his leadership into a northern powerhouse. He added that he continued to cooperate with the police and denied the offense he is facing. Today's headlines do not reflect the dramatic success that we have generated. I want to digest fully today's report before commenting on specific details. Again, you see, this reference to Tower Hamlets is not a reference to the mayor system. And that's where the collusion and the complicity of the Guardian with the corrupt culture is exposed. And let's see if there is a Max Collar report accessible. And we are continuing to say to people that the mayor system is bad and it should be scrapped. Vote no to the elected mayor system in terms on the 6th of May 2021. Vote no to elected mayor. And Max Collar is praised in the Jewish Chronicle. Why he is praised in the Jewish Chronicle is not quite clear, but we shall investigate. In light of the evidence, I, that is Robert Jenrick, commissioned Max Koller to conduct a best value inspection of the council. I want to thank Max and his assistant inspectors, Vivian Geary and Marvin Greer, for their thorough and evidence-based review. I have already placed a copy of the report in the library of the House. Now, where is that report? Let's see if he's... Okay, so that's the report, and we shall look at the report in a minute. So this so-called best value report, now we have to make it very clear to anyone watching this that we are opposed to Robert Jenrick absolutely, totally, because of his own corruption. We are opposed to the mayor system for reasons that we have outlined and we have updated on daily. And we're opposed to the claims by Joe Anderson, so far published and publicly accessible, that he achieved a lot. And we are opposed to the Labour Party's corrupt role. We are opposed to the Conservatives' corrupt roles. And we most certainly emphatically condemn Max Koller as one of the liars, one of the two main liars about Tower Hamlets. And he lied to the electors of Tower Hamlets. And he lied in a way that left no actual evidence that he understood that the corruption in Tower Hamlets Council was absolutely pernicious and nobody was accountable for their misconduct and corruption and criminality, and that the fact of an elected mayor post confounded the corruption and the lying and the dishonesty. So let's look at the Max Koller report on Liverpool and see what he says. about the elected mayor in the report. And it says at paragraph 3.6, an elected mayor who is not a councillor cannot be removed during their term of office unless they become ineligible. But if they are unable to act or stand aside, the statutory deputy mayor, who is a councillor, exercises their powers. In Liverpool, as a consequence, Councillor Wendy Simon is acting as mayor. Otherwise, although the mayor is an authority's principal public spokesperson and provides the overall political direction for the council, Max Koller has not, in the report, stated any finding of corruption or corrupt practices against Joe Anderson or his administration. So that's a shortcoming. That's a shortcoming that is very serious evidence. And what we are going to have to do is to look for other detailed evidence, if any, that anyone has published about Liverpool. Let's say on the record that none of the mayor-lumbered councils in London, Tower Hamlets, Newham, Hackney, and Lewisham, none of these councils has been obliged to publish reports of the actual behavior of the elected mayor, post holder, incumbent as against the elected councillors in place simultaneously or corresponding to the same time as the term as the elected post holder stays in that post. So there is no evidence. There is no evidence of what the elected councillors actually have done during the period of 4 years. Any period of 4 years. And this report in The Guardian about Liverpool City Council and the statement made by Robert Jenrick yesterday, they fall far short of the required kind of content and the substance of the information that they should be providing. Jenrick is not a Democrat, nor is any Secretary of State. And the fact that the Labour Party's so-called shadow to the generic post, Steve Reed has actually accepted all the recommendations Max Collar has made, shows that there is no rigor anywhere. So the headline is misleading, that commissioners have been sent by the Secretary of State to help run the Liverpool City Council, which is dysfunctional, for at least 3 years. This is misleading as the announcement by Eric Pickles about Tower Hamlets Council and about his sending the so-called commissioners to take over Tower Hamlets Council. That was the headline that the London Evening, no standard ran on the day after the announcement was made by Eric Pickles about Tower Hamlets Council. And Pickles, being a conservative and being a corrupt one, was not really against corruption. The only way, the only time, only occasion he used corrupt or corruption was in a hypothetical sense, not in an actual sense based on the findings of corruption in Tower Hamlets. So we don't expect much radical, that is to say, much truthful, substantial evidence for democracy, accountability, transparency, and ethics and morality in Liverpool City Council's behavior and in Joe Anderson's behavior. Anderson got elected twice, once in 2012 and once in 2016. And the election due, of course, the next election was due last year, but because of the coronavirus, the election has been delayed by 1 year. So the election is due to be held in May, and Anderson is not a candidate, but the people who are candidates for the elected mayor post are not talking against the wrong things that the elected mayor post brings. And there is no noticeable campaign in Liverpool among other people who are not members of the overwhelming majority, which is Labour Party, both in terms of the MP constituencies and also in the council. And so therefore there is no likelihood that Liverpool, the arrest of Joe Anderson and the sending of the commissioners yesterday, or the other arrests, will be usable by any democratic campaigners to dislodge the crooks from the council, whether as elected councillors or as elected mayors. And it is very likely, it may not happen, but it is quite likely that despite all of that, the Labour Party will regain control of the post of mayor at the election. Now, what we have in Tower Hamlets is a task that is not helped by the fact that there is no movement in Tower Hamlets among the elected councillors or among the ordinary public, among the ordinary electors, to establish democratic, accountable council. And the so-called movement that is ongoing now about some people saying that they are asking people to vote no on the referendum question on the 6th of May, that they may be asked about the mayor system. Unless there is rigorous and very vigorous orchestration and mobilization against the mayor system, it cannot be guaranteed, or it cannot be said with any guarantee at this stage, at this time, that the no campaign will succeed. That is a worrying thing, but that is a reality. So what we shall be doing is continuing with closer detailed look at the dysfunction of Tower Hamlets Council historically and the negligence of Tower Hamlets Council historically and the fact that it has been brazenly defying its duties as owed to these 4 schoolgirls from Bethnal Green, Shamima Begum and her 3 friends. And we say in the sense that the council's duties were owed to these girls when these girls were children. And they were children up to about 2.5 years ago. So from the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, up to another 4 years, Tower Hamlets Council was clearly, openly, intentionally neglecting its duties to these 4 girls. So we shall be taking a specific look, extended look in the next edition about Tower Hamlets Council's negligence and how the elected mayor, 2 post holders, Lutfur Rahman for 6 calendar years and John Biggs for 5 calendar years, let's say, neglected these children.